Now your hosts, Ryan Kane and Zach Daughtry.
Good evening, barbecue family, and welcome to another episode of Midwest Backyard Matters, proudly presented by Man Meat BBQ. Whether you are out on your driveway, in your backyard, or out on the KCBS competition trail, always remember that backyard matters. Once again, I am joined by my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the head pit master of damn fine beef and swine, Ryan Kane. Ryan, what's going on, man?
How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, pretty good. Haven't competed in a while and just been doing some practice cooks, and that's just about it. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah, not too bad. Worked the store last weekend, getting ready for Iola, Kansas this weekend, hopefully. We're still waiting to get word on whether or not that's going to happen. If not, looks like we'll take the trip to Oklahoma.
Is it just kind of short to make, or is it kind of short to qualify?
It's a little bit short to qualify right now, I don't really overly care about that. It's more just I think the organizer seemed a little hesitant about it. So hopefully everything works out and we have a great contest because I've heard good things about it. So
where's the Oklahoma comp at?
Miami, Oklahoma.
Miami, that's right. They were having they were going to have a steak cook that I briefly looked into running down there, because it's not really that far away from me. It'd only be about a 3.5-4 hour drive. So I was thinking about running down there, doing the steak cook and coming home, but didn't end up doing it. Just saving funds for the new camper and getting ready for I think we're going to do that Ashland backyard in mid-September. And
cool.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So if any of our viewers want to look into that, it's the Soboco barbecue cook-off in Ashland, Missouri. It's about 20 miles outside of Columbia, if you're not familiar with the central Missouri area. Last I remember, it was like it was a $50 entry with like a $10 entry for People's Choice. So it just made a whole lot of sense to try to jump in. Like I said, purse isn't going to be that big, but you can't really pass up a $50 entry for any sanctioned competition. So I really think that's the one we're going to do. There was another one that same weekend, the one up in Davenport, Iowa. Now, it had a much bigger purse. It was, I know first for ribs, chicken, and pork was all $1,200 a piece for first place for those categories. And it was limited to 15 teams, and it was a $300 entry. And Katie and I were kicking around if we wanted to maybe try to do that one, just because the money seemed almost too good to pass up for that.
Yeah, for sure. I cooked that Ashland contest last year. I think we won that. But no, it was fun. It was a one-day event. But yeah, I mean, exactly like you said, a $50 entry fee. It's hard to pass that up, even if what you're taking home isn't quite as much. I mean, it's just nice to go in. And if you're one of those teams that's, just looking for points, there you go, right? Like, that still has value. Yeah,
or if you're a new cook wanting to kind of dip your toe into the competition waters, you're not out a whole lot of money. You're not dropping $100, $300 upwards. Dinner a comp, $50 most people can do even on the low end of your budget. So think about the Ashland one. Like that one's gonna be pretty good.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get to the recap of the backyard competition results for this weekend, Ryan.
Sure. So the first one up on the thing was Smoke on the Mountain in Galax, Virginia. In first place, we had TNS Barbecue. Second was No Lookin' Cookin'. Third place was Pinky Out Barbecue. Fourth, Swine and Roses BBQ. Rib Life came in fifth. Poor Boys Barbecue in sixth. Ham Squad in seventh. Eighth was Lem's Meat Varnish. Ninth, Q and Q. And 10th was Dog Patch Q, filling out the top 10 for that one.
Second, we had the Fillmore County Fair up in Preston, Minnesota. Our man Alan Larimore with Wrecking Crew Barbecue takes grand championship. Reserve grand championship went to Big 10 Bones. Third, Joey Lee and Drew Wilson for Furlongs taking third. Sensuous Barbecue in fourth. Dad Bod Barbecue in fifth. Sugar Shack in sixth. Brian Calhoun with Wheezes Groovin' Barbecue in seventh. Smoky GQ Barbecue eighth. Pity Q in ninth. And Dogs Barbecue rounding out your top 10 in Preston.
Yeah, that's a solid lineup.
It's a really good
Wind
lineup.
and Fire had 5 teams, and your top 5 were Guardians of the Grill in first, Half-Cock BBQ in second, Fantastic Meat and How to Cue 'Em in third, The Big Rubber I have a cat. I apologize. The Meat Rubbers Barbecue in 4th, and in 5th place was Ernest Street.
So we had some movement in the Team of the Year Backyard Chicken points chase. Joey Lee and Drew Wilson move up to 1st overall in Backyard Chicken. Our man in front of the show, Hess Hogs, Josh Hess Hogs 4, up to 2nd. Rib Life 3rd. Ham Squad 4th. Veteran Pork Pullers 5th. Weeze's Groove and Barbecue 6th. Schmack Q 7th. The Fattest where it's at 8th. Leela Q 9. And Devin Holt moves into the top 10 with Fluffy Butt Barbecue for Backyard Chicken points.
Awesome. Team of the Year Backyard Ribs. Our boy Robert with Swinelicious Barbecue in 1st place. Wheeze coming in 2nd. Dog Patch Q in 3rd. Leela Q 4. The Fat is where it's at 5. Allen with Wrecking Crew Barbecue in 6th. Hickory Hangover, last year's Team of the Year, I believe rib team. 8th is Furlong Smoking Seafood. 9th Ham Squad, and Lem's Meat Varnish rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to Robert. He is a very humble guy. So Robert, we're going to go ahead and brag for you. We all know the work that he puts in, and he has just been killing it in competition this year, both categories. But ribs, I mean, hands down, I don't think there's a hotter rib cook right now on the backyard circuit.
I mean, I totally agree. The dude's definitely been putting in the work. He is the quiet killer. I'm going to break him out of his shell, though. I'm damn determined to do that. I'm going to get him to lose his shit one of these days.
He needs to, man. We told him to enjoy it. It maybe it'll last, maybe it won't, but man, go ahead and enjoy it when you can. And those of you who compete, the money, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the stress, the travel, everything that goes into this, if you hit that apex of the competition world, just to learn to enjoy it. And so Robert, like I said, congratulations, man. You're doing so good. We're proud of you, and keep it up the rest of the year.
Someone on Facebook said he likes Fireball, so maybe I'll take that approach.
I think I know who maybe it said Facebook user. I think that was Josh Hess who commented that. I couldn't tell. I think. Don't quote me on that, but Hess, if that was not you, I do apologize. But I'm pretty positive it was him.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
Should we get into it with our guest today?
Yeah, absolutely. So our guest for this episode is Greg Scallan of Compete BBQ out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Greg, how you doing tonight, man?
Apparently he can't hear us, so I'm just going to make up words when he starts talking.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll try to get him back in
okay.
here in a second.
Don't know what's
Greg,
going on
go ahead
with
and restart your connection and see if that helps at all. He can't hear us at all, so
he can.
Live show. This is kind of one of those things that's always bound to happen.
We haven't had it happen yet, so it's just kind of one of those things. Yeah, it was bound to happen on a live feed.
Yep. Katie, do you want to go ahead and cut his feed real quick, and we'll send him a message and we'll get him back on? So anyway, Zach, what do you got coming up soon?
No competition. The next thing we have coming up is we're going to be doing that pork butt demo for Ace Hardware. KCBS partnered up with Ace Hardware, and we got asked by KCBS to do one of those pork demos. And ours is going to be Saturday, August 27th in Prairie Village, Kansas. So we'll be doing the pork butt demo there and showing off kind of how we cook pork butt. Going to probably be more geared to the backyard style, the at-home cook, so we don't go into the complicated nature of cooking pork during competition. So it's going to be a really good time. We're looking forward to seeing who comes out and watches us cook a little pork, and we're going to have free samples, and we'll be out in the parking lot out front of the Ace Hardware in Prairie Village, Kansas. So please stop by and see us. Katie and I'll be out there cooking pork most of the day.
That'll be cool. Yeah, kind of you and I talked about that the other day. I mean, any FaceTime you can have with the public is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to kind of, now that we've changed our name, it's kind of cool that we get to kind of work the new brand and get going. Greg, can you hear us, man?
I can hear you now. When the show started and I was watching backstage, I couldn't hear anything, and I thought, well, maybe I'll come on. So I didn't hear any of the first part. So I rebooted it and I'm in now, so we're good.
Good. We do apologize. No, it's all good. We apologize to the audience for hanging with us there. So no, Greg, Ryan, you want to start us off with talking to Greg tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, buddy.
You too.
So you want to go ahead and tell us how Compete BBQ Team came around, or how you got your start cooking?
Yeah, and my story in that situation is a lot like anybody else. I started cooking, in the backyard and just cooking for me and my family. And then, of course, I'm competitive in everything I do, growing up in sports or whatever. And looking on Facebook for recipes and videos, I saw there's barbecue competitions. And so I looked into it, and it piqued my interest. And, it just, like all of us, it just snowballs from there, and you just want to get involved. So.
That's awesome. What year was your first contest?
2019. So I've only been going about 3 years.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So, Greg, we know that you are part of Team Cosmos Q, which is a huge brand, not only in the state of Oklahoma, but around the country and on the competition circuit. How exactly did you get hooked up with Cosmos Q?
Yeah. So, I live here in Oklahoma City, and I literally live 2 miles down the road from the storefront. So when I started cooking, when you look up different recipes and things like that, Cosmos popped up. It was here. I went by the store, and I was hooked with the products from the get go, and so I started using their stuff. And
Did we lose Greg?
You might have.
Yeah, we may have.
That's Oklahoma for everybody. If anybody's ever curious, that's Oklahoma.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I lived in Stillwater, Oklahoma for 5 years while I was working on my doctorate and at Oklahoma State. And the wind, man. So Stillwater basically sits in a bowl, right? Like the topography of the city of Stillwater is basically in a basin, right? So the wind comes down and just swirls and swirls and swirls, and you never, ever get a good signal. And you're out on the prairie, right? And it's just, man, and yeah, prairie fires and the whole thing. Yeah, living in Oklahoma was an experience for sure.
So on Facebook, welcome to Oklahoma Internet.
Oh man, yeah. No, it's it was an interesting place to live for sure.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of family friends that live down there that we grew up with, lived across the street, and they've all moved down to Tulsa and stuff. So we'll see them when we can. But my experiences with Oklahoma last year, that cost me some extra money than a regular contest because I lost a tent every single time I went.
Man, yeah, losing those tents is it is no fun. And Tulsa's a good town. Because Stillwater was really closer to it was closer to Tulsa than it was OKC. So I went and hung out in Tulsa a lot and went to a lot of Drillers games when I lived there. If I wasn't going to go to Pokes games and stuff, and like I said, it's fun to live in Oklahoma. There were some, like I said, it was so different. It felt different from Missouri. Maybe it's not really that different, but it felt really different coming from Missouri to the Stillwater area. But anyway, so what do you got going on? You got any besides the comps coming up this weekend? You got anything else going on?
No, nothing too crazy. Just work and life and everything in between. But while we wait to get Greg back on, I'll tell a fun story about the first time I met Greg. So I think the first contest that he and I cooked against each other was Derby, Kansas last year when it was just a backyard only.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Oklahoma, I think I remember at one point Greg's tent flying through the air. And this was on Friday night. We had probably sustained 40, 50 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
For most of Friday evening. I know I spent at least an hour just literally standing in my tent holding on to the top of it. But Greg's tent did not survive so well. I think that was probably his first of the year, but definitely probably not his last.
Yeah.
I think he still put on a pretty good cook. And if I'm not mistaken, he either won one of the categories or he RGC'd for the contest. So I know that was my first introduction to Greg.
I think that was probably the first of the year.
Yeah. I think he's still put on a pretty good cook. If I'm not mistaken, he won for his RGC for the contest. So, yeah, no, that was my first introduction to Greg. First of the year. Yeah. I think he's still put on a pretty good cook. If I'm not mistaken, are you able to hear us now, Greg? For his RGC for the contest. So, that was my first introduction.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. This is on me. I'm
he's still put on a pretty good cook.
On my computer.
Hopefully we'll catch up with the audio.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
All right. So anyways,
can you hear me now?
A little bit of, yeah, we can hear you. So you were talking about Cosmos and how you don't live that far from the store, and you tried the product and you really liked it. So you kind of catch us up on your relationship with Cosmos.
Yeah, and so I started posting on social media, and then when I started doing competitions, of course, I would post. And 2 years ago, when they sent out an all call for Team Cosmos for sponsor teams, I applied. Honestly, not thinking that I would it, but I was selected with many other great teams, and I'm going on my third year with Team Cosmos now, and I love their product. Things that I really like is product line. So it's not just rubs and sauces, but it's it complements everything with their wing sauces and rib glazes and wing dust, and just it's a complete line of everything, not just one rub or one sauce. And so I think that's what's great. The best thing about Cosmos Q is that diversity of a bunch of products.
Mm-hmm.
So how heavy is the Cosmos line in your competition, in your recipes, would you say?
Oh, 95%. I mean,
really?
we're not
awesome.
required to have to use, those products, but yeah, I mean, and of course I've used them for so many years, though. I know kind of what goes with it and what complements what. So use it for the products, but it's very small in proportion.
Very cool. So back in Derby of earlier this year, you won Grand Championship. I think you had told me that was that your first KCBS Grand Championship?
It was my first sanctioned KCBS Grand Championship.
There you go. And then on top of that, you 180 chicken. You want to tell us about that accomplishment?
Yeah, and guys, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I said, the Grand Championship means a lot, but that 180 means more. I'm more proud of that than the GC, just because of the work that I've put in. Chicken is hard. It seems to be difficult for everybody, even on the Master Series. And, I've gone through a lot of changes with chicken over the last year, and recipes, which for experience anyone else backyard barbecue, don't chase recipes. That is if you go to a competition, whether you score great or whether you score low, it's not really in your best interest to wholesale change everything, because it's really hard to get a gauge on what you're doing good and what you're doing bad with what the judges may be looking for. So I think you're really, really bad. After the first competition in Derby this year at the Toll Bridge, doing Derby every year, and the first one year I scored in chicken, and I was just tired of going up and down. So I tried something new, and I got with the team. I messaged the team that was very successful in chicken, and I asked them, I pay for a tell-all with just them. And I made that decision, and they said yes, as long as you don't publicize who we are. We don't want to get to that area, and don't give the recipe away. And so I paid for it, and I practiced that recipe for 3 weeks straight. I probably put 10 practice cooks in before going back to Derby, and that was the first time I used that process and the whole 9 yards and 180'd it. So a lot of hard work went into that, and the decision on my part, if I wanted to be successful and get better, I was going to have to just get rid of everything in my mind I'd done before, reached out and get help from someone who's been there.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, here we go again, guys. For all you new competitors or people thinking about getting into competition barbecue, Greg just proved the point yet again. Practice, practice, practice. We cannot overstate enough how much you need to practice your recipe time and time again on your driveway, in your backyard, before you take it to competition. Do not go out and wing it. I can promise you will not have good results. You need to get those variables nailed down and just practice. And that's a perfect example of how practice makes perfect, literally, in competition barbecue to get a 180. So let's stick with chicken, Greg. So do you cook thighs or do you cook legs?
Is he gone again?
I think he is.
Man, this one's killer.
Yeah.
Well, we might. I don't know. What do you think? We might have to call it for this one for right now, and
maybe I kind of want to see if we give it one more go. But
okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do something.
Yeah, that's totally.
May have to come back and do. I may have to do like an audio only with Greg. I think it's just the heat and stuff is just screwing up the signal down there. I'd say let's just give it one more shot, and if it doesn't, then so be it. And we'll just watch.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. So that's really interesting what he was saying about reaching out to a team, asking for help, and them kind of agreeing to do that. That's not necessarily the traditional way that a lot of people have learned how to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, classes are a very common thing, right? But to actually ask for a one-on-one, get that information from a successful team, I think that's a really interesting approach. And kind of to go back to your point with that, having that education, going to the class is one thing, right? Getting the recipe from a successful team is another thing. But if you didn't practice it, you don't go to a contest and become successful. One of the things that I always remember from the classes that I've taken is they'll tell you, I can give you my recipes, I can give you my timelines, but you have to still go out and cook it. You have to go out and execute. And that's kind of why people think that if you give away all your secrets, then suddenly they're going to be able to beat you with them. That's not true, right? I mean, your timeline better than anybody else. And if you're sharing that information, you still have to feel pretty damn good that you're able to compete with it. And I think that's a really good, it's a really good amount of information to get. But yeah, so if anybody is looking for that similar type of information, that's an avenue we've never really talked about, is just reaching out to a team directly and asking, hey, is there some kind of arrangement we can come up with to, I really want to learn and I'd like to learn more one-on-one. So I think that's cool.
Think of it like a private tutor, right? We encourage people to take classes with other fellow students. I think it's a bold move, and fortune favors the bold, where if you feel comfortable and you have the confidence and you come not looking to just use them and throw them away, but to meet someone and say, look, I would really like some help. I can promise you 9 times out of 10, they're going to want to help you. People in barbecue are some of the best people that we know. And it's an interesting aspect to kind of, pay them. But I think that's an arrangement that the barbecue student, has to come up on your own.
It's different than paying for a class, right? There's inherently
the same exact thing.
You're paying for a service, so it's all.
It's just one-on-one, and
hey,
like I said, Greg, you back?
Yeah, I came inside, guys. My phone overheated outside. This is all on me for the technical difficulties, so I don't want anyone to think this is the show's fault. This is all on me, so I apologize. But I'm inside now. I think I'm great with the connection, so I apologize. Go ahead.
No,
yeah, it sounds a lot better on our end.
Yeah, so no sound quality in the video. No, it happens.
Right before we lost you, Zach had asked if you cooked legs or thighs.
Sorry, I'm inside now. I got my cats. So one of the things I did is I switched from thighs to legs for that recipe. And once again, that was the first time I cooked that recipe. It's the first time I did that. Now, I did cook legs in a Master Series event last year. One time and didn't do bad, but you kind of have this pride thing in your head. You want to master thighs or master something, and I went back to thighs and probably should have stuck with legs at that point. But No, I probably will never go back to thighs. Never is a strong word, but after what I did with the chicken and derby, I'll probably just stay with legs. So
they're the hot thing right now, and you're seeing more and more Masters teams, it seems like, jump to cooking legs, and they're having success in the Masters circuit. And it was funny when I did the backyard roundtable last week or 2 weekends ago, whenever it was. 3 out of 4 teams there were doing legs, and only Devin does thighs. And usually, traditionally, it's been the exact opposite. And it just shows we need to tell all. Yeah, we may do something like that. I don't know. We're still kind of working on future formats for the show, but no, it just shows how popular legs are becoming. So, without giving us speaking of tell all, without giving us your complete recipe, what is it that makes your chicken so special? Because to score 180 at competition, you have to have a special cook. You have to. You got to put everything together. So what do you do that makes your chicken stand apart on the competition trail?
Hey guys, I'm going to be totally honest with you. There's nothing that I learned from that team that you can't find out or do on your own out there. Okay. Now there was a few small tips and tricks that I think, for instance, on finishing temp, the differences with legs and thighs and things like that. And so that's a valid question, but I'm also going to reserve judgment because I've also learned not to get too high with the highs and too lows with the lows. I need 2 or 3 competitions under my belt doing this exact same thing to really get a baseline. And then 180 is a great start. Obviously, if I go to Miami this weekend and I score 177 or better, then I've got something here. But I think both of you guys, I know Ryan especially knows this for a fact. You don't take anything for granted on a score because you could turn around to the exact same thing the next week and it'd be a different set of judges, and you may not even be there. So I'm very proud of the 180, but I'm going to be more proud if I can sustain this score moving forward. But there's nothing really. I mean, there's no magic dust, that I did. It's what anyone can do and anyone has access to do. To be honest with you, the only difference is instead of going to a class where I'm paying $1,000 for all the meats or whatever, I just decided to pay for just the chicken and like I said, and reach out. I heard you guys talk about that a minute ago. It depends on how bad you want it. You can go on for a couple of years and spend a whole bunch of money and try and change and go up and down, or if you really want it that bad like I did, I mean, you can make that move. And I promise you, one of y'all, the sponsor, Aaron Stauffer, every time I go to a Masters event, that man talks to me every time. He's giving me tips and tricks. He's a great man. And he's not the only one. A bunch of them are out there. So they're out there. I offered to pay to make sure that I got the tell-all on that deal. So it wasn't anything other than that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know one of the other things that you've done recently is start the Oklahoma Pitmaster brand. How did that come about?
Yeah, that came about, I don't think Oklahoma gets the recognition for its barbecue like some of the other states, Texas, your Carolinas, Kansas City. I started that brand just kind of a pitmaster, just kind of an awareness, raise awareness of how good Oklahoma barbecue is. There's lots of great pitmasters here. Unfortunately, we don't have as many competitions here as we'd like. I'd love to be chasing backyard points right now. Simple fact is there's not that many backyard events. I mean, I have to go to Kansas, 3-4 times a year. And so, to raise awareness, the same thing you guys are doing with raising awareness for backyard barbecue. It's the same thing. And so I got more stuff coming down the line. We got more logos being made and even thinking about expanding into some other cities also. So it's not just going to be an Oklahoma thing. We might come up with a logo or a brand for Kansas City barbecue, that a pitmaster might want to wear or use or whatever. And so it's still in its infant stage. I created it. I own it. We sold a lot of shirts, different logos, and everyone seemed to like them. So we're kind of seeing where I can go with it and what I can do with it. But overall, it was just to kind of give a platform for how good Oklahoma barbecue really is.
Very cool.
No, that's great. So I think Ryan was going to touch on this when we were waiting for you to get back online here. But, you had a really interesting experience qualifying for the World Invitational in 2021. You want to share that story with the audience?
Yeah, and for everyone who's about to hear this, Ryan was there. He experienced this, so we share that bond for sure for the rest of our lives. So what happened was we showed up to Derby last year for the first Derby event. It was backyard. It was at an airfield, and they had us in the middle of this great big huge field. And I didn't have my trailer at the time. This story is why I have my trailer now, actually. So, you know, I had my canopies and I had my tables and I had my Cambro and I had everything set up and I unloaded my truck, and it was about 3:30, I think. And the Cooks meeting wasn't until I think close to 6. Ryan, correct me on any of this if I get it off, but I'm going to go in town and get something to eat. So I go into Derby, and you know, I go get Taco Bell or whatever, and I come back. While I was gone, literally a storm blew through that 65-mile-per-hour winds, and I'm not exaggerating that. Ryan will back me up on that. I mean, it was bad. When I got back, my canopies had been destroyed, metal bent, everything had fallen off my tables. My Cambro had been knocked over. My meats were still in the cooler, so nothing happened to them, but it was just a disaster. And I had a decision to make at that point, and it was, you know, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna cook? What am I gonna do? You know, or I can figure it out. And so what I did was I dragged the canopies away. I got everything set up, and I parked my truck to block the wind next to. By the way, it's still raining and misting as all this is going on. And I kind of made a wind blocker, and I lifted the seats up in the back seat of my truck. I had a Ford F-150 at the time, and I cooked, and I used the floorboard of my truck with the, you know, with cutting boards and things like that. And you know, that's how I turned my meats in. I was sitting with my legs crossed, you know, 11 o'clock that night with just the light on from the inside of my truck, building my boxes with the kale. And, you know, and I won ribs the next day. Ryan GC'd, I RGC'd, and I won ribs. And that's how I qualified for the Invitational. And that story right there, as odd and funny as it is, you know, to those of you out there that are in the backyard or new to the backyard, you know, you're going to have stuff like that happen. And you've got to make adjustments, whether it's 10 minutes before turn in and you've got to make a big time decision, or whether it's your whole camp gets wrecked the night before. You can either, you know, make the best of it and make something happen, or you can, you know, give up. And so that was a very proud accomplishment for me. And that's how I qualified for the Invitational last year. You know, and the story that you guys posted today, Ryan posted about Razor Axes last weekend using one drum. I mean, it just goes to show you that you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have big rigs. You don't have to have all of that stuff. I mean, literally, you can win out of one can. You can win out of cooking on the floorboard of the back of your truck if you have to. You just have to be prepared for that stuff. Now, with that being said, I went and got a trailer, and I said, if I'm going to do this, I need to be prepared, and if I can be. So I bought a trailer, and I fixed up the inside of it and installed plumbing and everything in it, and I use it now. But by far the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me in barbecue was that weekend. And the other thing about that too is it's situations like that where we grow friendships. That was when I first met Ryan, and that situation and what we went through that weekend. He was cooking out of his car. Ryan didn't have his trailer yet either. He was cooking out of the back of his. It was an SUV of some sort, if I remember.
Yeah, it was a Subaru.
The Cubaroo.
Subaru.
The Cubaroo.
And so that's how friendships get formed in this too. It's those types of situations. It's those types of events, you know, that brings you closer together, or that you learn about each other, and we've been friends and close ever since.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned having to build boxes in the seat of your truck, because I absolutely remember doing that same thing. Man. Yeah, that Friday night was absolutely miserable, but it was actually a nice Saturday. Like, by the time turn-ins were happening, it was gorgeous out. Yeah. And we almost had the same exact weather this past year too. We had a tornado Friday night, and then Saturday was actually pretty awesome. So
yeah, and then last year in Derby at the Masters event that we went back, there was a bad storm that came through, and it tore up canopies and stuff like that. So this year, where I was in Derby, when that tornado came through, Larry and Linda Voth are the greatest KCBS reps I think there is.
My favorites.
But great people. And Larry came by my trailer and said, "Hey, are you coming back to Derby in a couple of weeks for the competition?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, there's a collection being made to pay you to stay home because every time you cross the Kansas border, some weather event happens." And I said, I can't deny it. It is what it is, but I'm glad I went back. So
absolutely.
Well, it's about react, adapt, overcome, right? And it doesn't matter if it's meat sports or traditional athletics. You have to have a competitor's spirit, and you have to have mental toughness and tenacity. And where there's a will, there's a way. And we've had the similar situation happen to us, and it was like, do we just pack up our stuff and go home, or do we gut this out, and try to put something together, because you just don't know what will happen. Somebody who didn't have that mentality, Greg, they would have said, forget this, I'm going home. And look what you did. You are GC. Ryan GC, same conditions. So it's about, you got to have that. It's not just about being a good cook. Okay, that's part of it, right? It's obviously a huge part of it, but it's not 100% of it. It's about having that attitude, having a winning attitude. And I know that sounds corny or cliche or whatever you're going to call it, but you have to have it. And you have to be able to react to these situations, roll with the punches, however you want to say it, and try to put out the best product that you can. And you will surprise yourself on maybe how well you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, my story just now was on the larger scale, but the difference between, you guys can agree or disagree if you want, but the difference between in backyard, your teams that are a little more consistent, okay, and the teams that are just new to it or not as consistent yet, are those decisions that are made 15 minutes before turn in. You take a bite of your rib and it's not tender. What are you going to do? Or it's too tender. What are you going to do? You've got to be, and that's where the practice part comes in. I don't want 80 chicken a month ago, if I didn't put 10 practice cooks in a couple weeks before. I just don't. There's no magic dust. It was practice, and I knew what I was doing when I got there. It's the same thing, in any other situation. And if I can, from experience, if I can help anyone else understand that, it's be prepared and have a plan for no matter what happens, and take that shot, because it's better than not doing it and regretting it later. But it's those decisions at the last minute that could make or break you walking the stage, or going home wondering what happened.
Well, it's like, and Ryan can back me up on this. I haven't taken the class. He has taken the class, the Travis Duffy class. And what does Duffy talk about? He talks about finishing. And it's about how you finish. It's about those last 15 minutes. It's those last minute adjustments. It's gut instinct. And that comes from also experienced cooking, right? About, how am I going to box this? Is it too spicy? Is it too tender? Is it not tender enough? And that can make or break you more than just having a bad cook. Right. It's all about that finish. It's about finishing the cook and putting that best product in as possible, because once it's turned in, it's turned in.
Yeah, guys. Yeah. And here, make a timeline with an Excel spreadsheet or write it out on a piece of paper. And when you get your timeline done, then I want you to back that timeline up 15, 20 minutes. Because when you think you're going to finish at that time, you're not going to finish at that time. There's going to be time's going to get added, and then you're not going to have enough time to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you enough. I mean, I've got my Excel spreadsheet timeline down to the minute, and I make sure that I've given myself plenty of time. I'd rather be early and have it, and I can keep it where it's at and make decisions at the last minute than rushing at the last second. So if there's one thing all new teams out there, in my opinion, should do, is make a detailed timeline before you go, and allow yourself on that timeline an extra 15 to 20 minutes at least. And Ryan can probably, I'm sure agree with that. I mean, you too, Zach, but I'm just saying in general, that's huge, guys. It's huge for new teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of what you guys are saying is 100% accurate. Especially if you're going to be a backyard team and you're going to be competing often. Backyard turn-ins are not always at the same time. So it's helpful to have a timeline for an 11, for a noon turn-in. It's helpful to have timelines for a 2 p.m. turn-in, right? That way, exactly what time you're going to be doing everything, and you're not going, I think it's this. You just take out the variables where things can go wrong, right? If you have that written down and you can stick to that, your day is the same regardless of whether you're turning in at noon, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter. And as far as cooking under like the adversity of the weather, things like that, I mean, at the end of the day, it makes for a great story, right? I don't remember the scores from that contest, but I remember holding onto my tent for an hour. That's kind of half the reason to do it, right? Like the stories are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember dragging mine away. You were holding yours down. I was dragging mine away.
I think mine broke at the next Derby contest, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, man?
Going to Miami, Oklahoma this weekend, Northeast Oklahoma. And you just mentioned this too. The turn-in times are very weird this weekend. It's KCBS, but I think chicken turn-in's 2:15 to 2:25, and then ribs is 2:45 to 2:55.
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay. Yeah, those are the contests where you have to have that time.
That messes with your head. I'm already sitting here going, geez, I know what my steps backwards are going to be, but man, it's weird.
Yeah, that's no early morning cook.
No. And so I'm going to Miami. I'm going to Owasso. That's an unsanctioned competition, middle of August 12th, 13th, I think. And then I don't have anything else on the schedule until Nick's event in Tahlequah, which is the Backyard Double. I think we're all looking forward to. And then there is an event here. Actually, it was just announced in Oklahoma City. It's a KCBS event. They're actually having a full-blown one here in the city, which Oklahoma City, the city hasn't seen a KCBS event in forever. So I'm excited about that. And then I'll be headed to Alabama in November for this year's World Invitational.
There you go, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, Greg, we really do appreciate you sticking with the technical difficulties and stay on the show, man. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for my part of that, guys. I apologize.
Hey, these things happen. No need to apologize.
Better prepare.
It's all good, buddy.
I had a game plan in case something like that happened, but I didn't.
It's all good, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Greg.
Yeah,
he made
to apologize for the technical things, but that was a good conversation.
He really brought up salient points, right? And it's the timeline thing that's key. It seems like every week we talk about these things, right? But they cannot be overstated. You got to have a timeline. You got to be prepared. You got to have a mental toughness, the right attitude, have a good attitude, and you will see yourself do better. And you got to take your licks. You're not going to just walk out there and win these things right off the bat, more often than not anyways. And you got to have that tenacity and to keep coming back and then be more prepared, keep practicing. And really I promise you will do better. You will do better. It's just the way it goes.
100%. I'm going through that right now with, learning pork and brisket in the Master Series, right?
Yeah.
You go out there and your expectations stay exactly the same, but the results may be a little bit different. So it's one of those things where you find the victories, where you can get the victories, and you just keep building, right? Any weekend you go out there and cook could be the weekend that you take home top prize. It's just
and I mean we see it all the time, even from like in a double day 1 to day 2. Somebody can walk out there and have the best cook on day and win day 1 and turn right around and be middle or bottom of the pack on day 2. But they stick with it and they know that it could have been a weird judge. It could have been, there could be a lot of things, those little variables that change how your turn-ins get judged, but they don't just quit. They don't just say, well, I did crappy the second day, I'm just going to, forget it. Well, no, they're going to go right back out because they may do, you've been doing really consistently good, but you go up and down, and I mean, you just got to stick with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the double in Wisconsin last year, I was 35th out of 40 teams on day 1, and then we RGC day 2.
Yeah.
If we would have left, we never would have gotten, the points that we needed for team of the year. We never would have had, that kind of redemption cook for us. And there was nothing that went wrong on day 1, right? It felt like a normal cook to me and to my wife. It's just, we hit the wrong set of tables, and you just kind of say, chalk it up, go, all right, we're good, move on, go get some dinner, and let's get ready for day 2. You have to have a very short memory.
Like Ted Lasso said, be a goldfish.
Be a goldfish.
Be a goldfish. All right, man, you got anything you want to leave the audience off with tonight?
Nope, just one thing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're definitely trying to get more people on there, but we definitely appreciate you sticking with us.
Yeah, guys, again, thank you so much. We do apologize for those technical difficulties, but hey, doing a live show, those things will happen. Well, for Ryan Kane, I am Zach Daughtry. This has been another episode of Midwest Backyard Matters, proudly presented by Man Meat BBQ. Whether you are out on the driveway, in the backyard, or out on the KCBS competition trail, always remember that backyard matters. You guys have a great night.
Midwest Backyard Matters, brought to you by Man Meat BBQ. Additional sponsors: American Fire Barbecue and Grilling Supply, Sofa King Awesome Barbecue, Trauma Hogs Barbecue, and Hunsaker Smokers.